And then to Salim, and then Ahmed, please. Okay, thank you guys.
So thank you. Thanks for the invite. My name is Kush. I'll go reverse order, so start now and go backwards. So for the last 15 months, I've been running, we created and now run e&Etisalad's venture fund. So that's been about 15 months. We've made 10 investments and looking to make another 10 over the next 2 years. So that's the main thing I do right now. Before that, for 24 years, I was I was a consultant for 2 different consultancies, one called Rollenberger for 12 years, and before that, Oliver Wyman for 12 years. So that's been, those were my called sell-side days. The last two years have been my buy-side days. In between, together with a few people in this room, we launched as a fun project from about 2016. Sam is there. We launched Dubai Angels, which is an angel investment club stroke fund. That's been going for 6-7 years. We invested in about 40 companies. Through that, sold a few, watched everything, ups and downs of the fund, got involved, got our hands dirty. That's it in a nutshell. Born and brought up in Kenya. Lived about 10 years in London during university and post-university, and then came here in 2005. So I've seen all the fun and games of Dubai from 2005, and what's happening in the last 2-3 years in Riyadh is another level. So it's like, I don't think any country anywhere in the world in its entire, maybe before history was written, has moved so crazy, so fast. It felt impossible, but they've thrown a lot of money at it. So in a nutshell, that's me watching this space.
Great. Salim? Thank you. I'll do the total reverse. I'll start from the beginning and bring you up to speed here right now. Just be different, right? My name is Salim Hassan. There's 6 flags that define my journey in life to date. First flag is that of Fiji Islands. That's where I was born, in Suva. My late parents came from Pakistan. Second flag, I did not grow up there. I grew up actually in the 3rd flag in West Africa, Nigeria. That's where my formative years were spent, in the North Kano, Kaduna, Sokoto. And from there I went to the 4th flag, which is the United Kingdom, for higher education. I wanted to be an academic initially. I studied mathematics at Oxford. As an undergrad, my tutor advised me to go to Cambridge and get the part 3 of the maths tripos. I applied, got funding, so I went. And I was blessed to have some amazing minds, Penrose at Oxford and the late Stephen Hawking at Cambridge, who taught me and mentored me. Unfortunately, I didn't get funding for my PhD, so I parted ways with academia, moved to London, and my first and only corporate job was with the Japanese, the 5th flag. I was the first of 4 graduate trainees Nico Europe PLC hired back in '83, trained in Tokyo in '84, was with them for 11 years. I ran their equity and derivatives operations for 7 of the 11 years that I was there. There was too much fire in my belly, so I told the chairman at the time, I want to go on my own way, give me your blessings. So that's when my own entrepreneurial journey started. I did my first startup in the UK called Hudson Financial Corporation in 1996, 27 years ago. HFC was an independent buy and sell side advisory firm focusing on the Japanese markets, regulated by the FCA, the Financial Conduct Authority of the United Kingdom. I owned and operated that business for 24 years. Sold it to a Swiss family office in February 2020, just about the time when COVID-19 was rearing its ugly head. Whilst running HFC, I was on an Emirates flight going to Karachi in '02, transited for 48 hours in Dubai, smelled the desert for the first time in 24 years, after a 24-year hiatus when I left Sokoto, Nigeria to Oxford. Fell in love with this place. First 2 years I commuted. After 2 years I moved lock, stock and barrel to Dubai. Got up the next morning to trade Japan because the hours are kinder here. Market closed at 10. At 1 past 10 I was twiddling my thumb. That's when the second seed of entrepreneurship got sown. Came up with this idea of Privity. Unlike HFC, which was focusing on the public markets, I decided, well, it took a while, but I decided to focus on the early stage private markets. So what is Privity? Unlike the giant sitting across on my right here, I'm probably the smallest VC operator here you will find. Think of Aurangzeb in Silicon Valley. He's a one-man Israeli VC. I am an Aurangzeb sitting here in this region. I'm a one-man shop sitting in this region. I look for entrepreneurs globally that I want to back and build. I find them, I back them, I build them. I've done that 17 times in the last 14 years. 4 companies, and it's all on my website. So if it was interested or bothered to find out more, privityLA.com, you can learn more. I've backed 17 entrepreneurs, 4 of those didn't work out. I've had 3 small exits, the rest are still standing. So that's a bit about me. Thank you.
Thank you, Salim, for this introduction, and thanks, Kush, for your introduction as well. I think, do I need an introduction as well, or
No.
you guys know me already?
No, you're too famous, you're too famous.
No, it's not about famous, it's just
What's new? It keeps changing.
The moment to grind.
Yeah. One day I'm a nomad, and the other day I'm coming from my automatic. Yeah. So a little brief about myself. I was born and raised in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia, originally for 2 parents who comes from Alexandria, Egypt, and I live between Saudi and Riyadh. I've been like all my life, like, keeps on changing. Like sometimes even my childhood, like from a French Catholic school to a British English school to international school, sometimes changing schools over semesters and changing countries and stuff until I finished my, I was majored in mathematics, and then I decided to do my computer engineering undergrad. And while I was studying, I was running I was involved in the entertainment industry, so I was like, I didn't look at it as my career or future career, but I was just like more of having this side things, running the shows and the world tours for Shakira, Robbie Williams, Madonna, you name them, like David Guetta, Armin van Buuren, Tiesto, like all the big shows, all the world tours, all the stuff. So that was fun. I was still young, just, like having the inertia, the ego, the stuff. I did this, I did that, I'm here and there, and then I decided to.
So when your kids want to not study maths or computing, you say, you study maths, you get to do this.
So I was a geek, coding in 8 languages actually. Designing microprocessors with my own hand, and in the summer I'm just doing all this crazy stuff, and these guys were just staying in the same place, and so it was kind of like part of my mental illness, which I'm trying to deal with right now. And then I went to Lebanon, to Beirut, for some time, and then the Arab Spring broke out. While I was doing my military service, I was a lieutenant troop leader in the air defense forces. During all the mess that you guys was watching as an entertainment on TV, I was in the middle of the action there, in charge of the air defense troop, and it was like kind of crazy. So from heaven to hell, from Tahiti beach to the army to the third field and the desert between mountains. Sometimes you couldn't even see the palm of your hand. And then I switched from mathematics. After I finished my military service, I decided to step into business and finance, and this is where I did my Cambridge International Diploma in Business. I majored in HR and marketing with honors. And then I started my trading career. So I got my PMT license, a professional market trader, the 3 levels, and I started FX and money markets trading for Prop Desk back in the days in London, in the other side of the river in the wharf. We were trading for Bank of England, Bank of China, Merrill Lynch, HSBC, Goldman Sachs, you name them. And it was a passion for me. Like, it was more like a video game. It reminded me of a different shift in my gaming days of high school and college, but now I'm not, and I always say that kids play video game, men play the market. And as we used to say on the trading floors, and you remember that, if you can trade FX, you can trade any market. And I started teaching the CFA, the Chartered Financial Analyst, the 3 levels with the CFA Society, and I was doing my MBA at Edinburgh Business School in Hereford in Scotland. This is my favorite place. I miss the snow so much. Now in Dubai, I cannot smell it anymore. And I just decided to drop, and I said, let me bring everything back together with a Master of Science in Financial Engineering. And this was in the early of 2016 when I started, and I was developing algo trading for some of the Wall Street hedge funds and even the early crypto trading desks for Goldman Sachs and Wells Fargo. And then I came to Dubai here by an invitation from a company that maybe all of you know very well, Agora Group. They invited me for 2 weeks as a hosted investor for 6 private dinners and meetings over 2 weeks, 1 dinner, 1 meeting every other day. That was my first time ever in Dubai, ever. I know nothing about Dubai but Burj Al Arab and Burj Khalifa from the ads that I see, but I have totally no idea why am I coming here, what am I gonna do here, where I'm gonna stay. I just booked one-way flight, I had my bag, booked it at the airport when I arrived here, booking.com, just 2 nights, any nearest place to the airport until I figure out what I'm gonna do next. Agora at that time was a 2-3 months old company, still started, didn't even hosted their first conference yet, and over the 2 weeks I just discovered that I'm very well globally connected with the VC world, that I had no idea that I had these connections back 16, 17 years ago when I was in college. And everybody now is all over the world. Some of them I see them on the Forbes, and I was like, I still have the silly pictures when we used to stay at each other places, and I was like, okay. And then where Hadi headhunted me, and he said like, hey, why don't you join us officially and help us with the investment banking side of Agora, and you know all the concept. And this is where we first met when I invited Salim, one of my first friends, if not the first friend, and my mentor that I always honor to shadow, and over his shoulders I can take some sneaky views of how the real world works and learn a lot from him. Kush is a very dear friend as well. Since the meetings and the catch-ups of Dubai Angel Investors and the foundation of Saudi Angel Investors. He will tell us more after we finish this panel. We're recorded, by the way. So let's start. We're gonna like have a brief discussion, open, casual, intimate, so feel free to throw whatever cards you want to throw, about private equity and venture capital. A lot of confusion, and people don't really know that venture capital is just a subset of private equity, because it still remains a private company. But when we say private equity, we are more referring to established companies that has a track record and a little bit fat. And when we talk about VCs, we are talking about babies that we are not sure that they are gonna make it. So what's your take on that? We start with Kush.
Sure. I'll actually sandwich VC with another thing.
Mm-hmm.
There's private equity, there's venture capital, and there's venture build. So venture build and private equity have more similarities than the venture capital. So in these two, there's more intervention, more involvement by let's say the investors. So in venture build, they're fully involved. They're actually the ones building. They might hire teams to do the building, but they're overseeing and they have a playbook. In private equity, you typically buy control. And you get high leverage, and you make a lot of changes in the way a particular business is run. So typically private equity is when you see a good business with good potential, but that's underperforming for multiple reasons, and you come in and you intervene. You almost always change management, almost always increase the cost efficiency or the productivity. And then sometimes you do some pivots and are around products, geographies, etc. So that, and then you typically do a roll-up strategy. So you acquire, you consolidate certain vehicles. And in the UAE, that part was up to a certain point. Abraj was the only player in the region. There's a few others, Investco, there's Shua, and a few smaller players. A lot of family offices playing it, but no major private equity play since Abraj went down. So that's a large missing gap in the UAE. The sovereigns, PIF, Mubadala, ADQ, kind of play that role, but it's more a government kind of crowding out play. The VC side, venture builder, I'll just close on that. Typically, you have the most famous venture builder, I guess, that most of you might have come across is the Rocket Internet guys. Oliver Samba built a couple of very strong playbooks that were copied from the US, realized this works very well. He was first to market on fashion, retail, on multiple products, and then he went out and created about 100 of these companies around the world. Got funding from, he'd set 2 or 3 up, value them, so he'd say he'd spend 3, 4, 5 million on each, value them at about $50 to $100 million, then say, here's what I'm gonna put in. You'll take 3, 4 companies, say, these are worth 100 million, get a partner who puts 100 million in cash, so now they have 200 million of so-called business that they will go out and build another 20 businesses. So that's what he did with what was called Africa Internet Company with MTN. He did it here with Middle East Internet Company, and I think they had with Jumia was the African one.
Definitely.
So there was a few here, and they did that in Asia.
Souk,
Lazada. So not Souk, but the other one, Namshi, etc. So those were built. So there's a very famous founder here called Iyad Qasim. So he built Iran's biggest company.
Yeah, Al-Qasr.
Iyad Al-Qasr. So he's built Snap, right? So Snap, and I don't know what Snap is worth, probably 3-4 billion, but it's in Iran, so it's still. But he's built 20-30 other companies here. So he was the guy running Rocket Internet here. So that's the venture build. There's about 7-8 venture builders that do it as a service. But he was building it for Oliver Samba and the gang. Now, venture capital, let's define how venture capital came in. When Intel and all these guys were selling chips, they realized to sell chips you need software, because why do you buy chips? You need software that's requiring the need for the chips. So at that time the industry stood out in, what was it, in the 70s, 60s, 70s. So, you know, a lot of people started getting into the software world. And they were supported by, who were the LPs? The LPs were the Intels of the world who were pushing that capital so that you can create software companies that create a boom. And then after the software companies were created, you need, you know, the dot-com era came. Then after the dot-com era came Microsoft, the cloud era came. After the cloud era, we had the crypto and the AI era, etc., etc. So all of these have a growth spurt. So software used to sit on your own premises, which became expensive. Cloud came, that allowed software costs to go down, and that allowed yet more spurt of companies to come. So there was a point for 5 years, cloud companies were growing. Now with the AI era, you know, you reduce costs even further. So you'll have another 5 years of spurt where everybody, all the VCs will be focused on AI-driven use cases. So in a nutshell, I don't know if I've answered your question, but that's the space.
So far, great. Thanks for very good brief explanation and giving a helicopter view on that. I really gonna use a lot of your narratives and analogies. We go to Salim now and listen to your view on that.
Sure. Well, I can only give you the view of VC through my own lens, and that's 19 years of the data points that I've collected here as a funder sponsor, doing what Privity has been doing, backing those 17 entrepreneurs. So when I started, I came up with my own methodology, how I want to identify opportunity. And this is what I wrote actually 19 years ago on my website. I haven't changed it. In fact, the logo stems out of this way of thinking. It's about ideas, innovation, invention, intelligence, the 4 I's. You've got to have an idea, you've got to be innovative or inventive, and the corporate intelligence is a critical ingredient. I mean, in the military, you have military intelligence, government intelligence, business intelligence. Well, when you're building something, so when I asked you about the competition and stuff, so it's about intelligence, knowing what your neighbor's doing, what the guy around the corner is doing, right? So those 4 I's, when you join the I's together, you get a little window, the window of business opportunity. I like it, it's the way I think. That became the logo of Privity. So when you see it, you'll see a little window with these eyes joining dots. I'm just giving the genesis of how this all came about. And then what I also wrote 19 years ago were these 2 sentences, literally about us, first 2 sentences. I said I'm agnostic to geography as I am to industry vertical. And you can hold me to my word till today, 19 years later. I really don't give whatever, where the idea comes from. And I don't care what industry vertical is. What do I mean by that? Today, God bless the Gen Z millennial generation. I mean, they're probably 20-25% of the world population. Everyone walking today and talking about Kush was saying about the compute power coming down and more companies coming in because of cycles of innovation happening. Every entrepreneur walking, him or her, he or she, with an idea is a startup by definition, right? You're a startup, right, with your idea. And I'm talking tons of people like you, but it's a massive number. So I did a back of the envelope math, just sitting down. I said to myself, people talk about, I'm scared, jobs, jobs for life, etc. I said, well, doesn't matter whether you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, or whatever, doesn't matter. See, you started in your 30s, and you went into this space, and you wanted to meet 10 new entrepreneurs, startups a day, right? Not that most people do it, but see, you saw religiously 10 every day for the year. That's 4,000 a year, right? If you're in your 30s, you've got another 30 years of runway ahead of you, or 40 years of runway ahead of you. Do the math, 40 into 4,000, or 30 into 4,000, that's 120, 160,000 people you would have met over your lifetime. Do you know how many of these people there are? It's about 2 to 3 billion. So then you 10x your size of your team, that only takes you to 1 million. You 100x it, that only takes you to 10 million. There's still a drop in the ocean. The point I'm trying to say is, I suddenly realized I've created a job for life for myself. I'm going to commit the rest of my life, whatever God's given me left, to meet entrepreneurs daily, whether it's virtual, online, or in person. And I will always have the first cup of coffee with anyone. So if anybody finds me, knocks on my door, I always take the first cup of coffee. But I always say the second cup of coffee is predicated on how the first one went. Now, coming back into entrepreneurs and what I do, or what's my mechanism, or modus operandi. 2 C's. 2 C's. Capital and customers, clients. If I don't feel I can bring those 2 C's to an entrepreneur once they've pitched their idea to me and I find it of interest, right? The chances are I'm not going to get involved. So not only does the capital come through the network, but the customers, more importantly. Capital will give you runway. Customers will give you longevity, right? There's only so much Kush will write a check for, even if he follows up and stuff. But if you don't get customers, you're going to be around long and you piss him off at some point, right? You'll say, well, what's going on here, guys? I've given you all this money and you're not delivering, right? So it's very, very important, at least in my sphere of influence, I want to make sure that if I can help that entrepreneur, that's maybe touching upon what he talked about venture building and stuff, because that's what they would do. They would open up your doors, open up your black book and find a government contact, a business contact, somebody that will help. You want to scale into a different geography. Then, so I'm just telling you how I go about my day-to-day. Then I talked about those 6 flags. So you're an entrepreneur in the UAE. Maybe your life journey was different from mine. Maybe you were in the region, or maybe Scotland, or maybe you're focused in the region. And you suddenly want to get into Japan. Now, the chances are where you start. It's not the easiest market in the world to get into, but not for me. So if I found there was an opportunity coming out of this region that would have traction in the Japanese market, that is value I can help from a scaling point of view. Once, it's... So I guess it boils down to then the 2 things that really resonate with me with any entrepreneur. And again, I've written it about us, first 2 sentences. I care about 2 things. The quality of the entrepreneur, and that's a judgment call I will make. And secondly, the underlying compelling value proposition of the idea. What comes out of your mouth, does it blow my mind? And that's how my starting journey with any entrepreneur takes place.
Thank you, Salim. I always enjoy listening to Salim's impressive way of storytelling and how he coins and puts in phrases everything that.
You're very kind.
As much as I already know a lot about the journey, that sometimes I can take the footsteps of your journeys and memories, but every time I listen to it as if I'm listening to it for the first time. And that's a good storyteller, which is something that I'm always trying to grasp the acumen of in my life. I hope I'm a good one. Yeah, please. But I will take another different view. I don't want to compete with you guys in the ways that you put everything in a nicely told way. I have my own ways of phrasing things as well, but I will not add more into this. I will take it more into a pragmatic, practical, brutally honest way. From a financial engineer and someone who comes from the buy side. When it comes to private equity and venture capital, as a financier or someone who used to teach a lot of investment bankers how to do business and sick and tired of giving advice that nobody listens to, I always call private equity and venture capital fooling some of the people all of the time. It might sound a little bit aggressive, a little bit rude, but Because when I look into the VC industry and the private equity industries, there's a lot of amazing ideas. There's a lot of things that you can spin off left and right. But in the end, when I talk about it, look at it from a financial engineer or an investment banker point of view, or an investor long-term, realistic, putting things on the ground, doing the economics, weighing the economics of everything, I find that a lot of the reportings about the performances of startups or even private equity companies, it comes from internal reporting of the CFO. We don't have the transparency that we have in the public markets, for example. You don't have the chart that tells you every day what is worth. You just take a snapshots every quarter. And who's telling you this? Is it their own company telling you about themselves? Like, seriously, this is the kind of reporting I'm getting here. This is the kind of valuation I'm getting here. And according to your skill about how you can impress me with how you tell your story and how you make it look 10 times bigger, which is something we are very good at, by the way, me personally. So, and you both know that very well. So I'm kind of like now firing back at myself, but and most of these deals, like I've worked the LinkedIn valuation model in my hands. I still have it on my computer prior to the Microsoft acquisition. So we saw what the company is really worth after they acquired Linda Learning, which is now LinkedIn Learning, and all this kind of things. Gaming, when I was introducing Blue Custody and the stuff, IPO and gaming companies on Hong Kong Stock Exchange. So the big guys, the big banks and stuff, they know how to play the game. And as you said as well, cash will give you the runway. So we always say cash is king, but marketing is everything.
Customers, yes.
So marketing about creating a market. Marketing is not the sales, it's not just the promos, it's not just, marketing comes from market and how to create a market and how to have a market for it, how to sell. If you don't sell, there is no market. As the founder of Seed Invest says, if it doesn't generate money, it's a hobby. It's not a business. A lot of people are just saying our career, my career, and I'm like, bro, you're spending on it. You're not making money out of it. So until it gives money,
can I add something to what you just said, Ahmed? Yes, selling is very important. Marketing is very important. That probably worked for the better part of the 70s, 80s, 90s, maybe early 2000s. But today, with the advent of technology, AI, as we all know, you need to sell, but back that sales up with data behind you. But that is very powerful. If I walk into a room and unequivocally show you data that buttresses what I'm trying to sell you, whatever that things I'm trying to sell you, the chance that you won't push back because, boom, here's the evidence. Mm-hmm. It's like in a court of law when somebody's saying something, where's the evidence? You show the evidence, the judge can make a decision in your favor, right? It's the same thing, when you go and try to sell something in the public world. In today's day and age, back it with data, then you've got a real killer in your hand, I mean, this is what I believe. So you're absolutely right. Selling is very important for any business. For a CEO must be the best salesman of the company, but back it up with either through your CFO, or the CEO should have all those qualities in him or her. So when you're trying to say something, go bang, bang, bang. This is it. This is the data that supports what I'm trying to say.
So I'll throw sentiment into this discussion because a large part is driven by what the market sentiment, or even public markets, right? So when it was 2021, etc., when formal investing was happening, the pace at which you make the deal, the fact you want to take the lead, the fact that not even a quarter percentage or a quarter of the due diligence was actually performed. Exactly. This was all part of the process, and people were snapping how fast they did a deal, not the fact that they were in a deal and how fast they did the deal. Not
about the quality of the deal or what did the deal brought up in the end. Yeah.
And that was the sentiment driver. Now the sentiment is, I went through all of the details. I checked everything. I even looked at the bin of the CEO to check everything. So it's it takes what used to take 3 weeks to close will take 3 months to close, and you'll still not be completely satisfied. Klarna is an example where deals were done at 50 times the revenue, down now to 4 times the revenue. So the valuations. So valuations will be driven by sentiment. Mm-hmm. By the way, we can talk about crypto in the same way. So there is fundamentals, there is a story behind it. Cash will always drive I think what's happened now currently is fundamentals is playing a stronger role than other types of sentiments. Why is that? Interest rates are high, political conflicts are high, inflation is high, so there is kind of cautious winds that force fundamentals to be a key driver in decision making. When it was the other way around, when it was easy money, when the world was at peace, it was a different story. I think we're not in that equation right now. How long will this last is hard to tell. Will it go back at some point to the crazy money? In some verticals it already is. Why is OpenAI worth, I don't know, 98 billion or some crazy billion? We're all gonna get it for free. We're gonna get it for free. How is it worth that much? I don't know.
Yeah, but I think one of the issues, though, to your point with tech startups, is that most can't afford to be audited, right? And they don't have the time, right? Because that's for a company, that's a whole long, lengthy process. And when they're raising money, the last thing that they're thinking of is they have my financials audited every year. So, when I was a lawyer representing a lot of, on both sides, the startups and the funds, they would recognize that and have to hone in the due diligence to sort of key top line important financial numbers, right? You can't look through all the financials. You do have to trust the CFO, but then we would look for variances. If there's some dramatic, increases in revenue reported, and try to verify some of those big numbers. But I'm not sure there's a way to solve it, because asking startups to get themselves audited.
I'm not asking them to get audited. I'm just be skeptic. Be skeptic about everything they say.
Of course.
One of the people that
Especially
one of the but this is like a little bit of like brutally American way. He says it.
Look,
the moment that a CEO, when do you know when a CEO is lying? And the answer goes whenever he opens his mouth.
All CEOs in the room.
His chief mate. You're a chief mate. That's a brilliant move.
He's a friendly liar.
Just to Jimmy's point about auditing and stuff, and I have a very simple answer that if you don't want to be audited, don't raise money from an investor. Bootstrap it, do yourself. Go sweat, go on that print and sweat it out. Don't raise money from a person, and then do what the hell you want. It's your money.
But the skepticism, if you take the definition of revenue, for example, in the last 2 years, 3 years, we've seen so many definitions of revenue. They add other people's revenue and it's their revenue. They do a deal, the two of us will do deals with each other, we both count it as revenue. It's a barter deal, so much of this has been around.
So I'm just asking to be skeptic and just study, do your homework, do your due diligence. I see a lot of funds following funds and they just exit from one fund to the other. Look where the money got materialized. Examples.
Panel,
Yeah.
sorry again. We heard about the psychology and importance of psychology. Can you tell us, you as a professionals, what happened with Sequoia when they invested 270 million to FTX while interviewing online when he was playing video games? 20 minutes interview and $250 million.
He was at our event in 2021 when he was sitting there and they invested in. There was no due diligence. There was no due diligence.
To answer his question, Ahmed.
Yeah.
I'll start off with a quote. There's no art to find the mind's construction from the face.
Yes.
He was a gentleman on whom I based my absolute trust, and that's from Macbeth. Okay? What that means is basically, I'm looking at you, you look like a nice guy.
Thank you.
Right? But you could be a quote unquote
I
crook
open
for all I know.
my
Correct.
not
Okay?
on my face.
Right. That's my point. Okay? And the same with Sequoia. However smart they were, there was one that slipped through the net. Right? Number one. Number two, Sam SBF was a smooth talking salesman. Smart guy, but smooth talking salesman. So again, he convinced those guys at the time. They parted, and Sequoia was not the only one. There was lots of very household blue chip names that came in because of the his parents being who they were, and etc. 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 So these things do happen, and that's why again maybe I should call it 5 eyes, not 4 eyes for Privity. And the eye that's most important for me is integrity. the integrity of the entrepreneur, honestly. And till today, that's the hardest part of my job, attaching a value on the integrity of an entrepreneur. Because when the integrity is intact, you can sail that ship through troubled waters and through thunderstorms. When the integrity is not there, then problems happen. And I've experienced that firsthand over the last 19 years.
When
Please.
it's good people, it's good business. This is what I always say. When it's good people, it's good
Granny
business.
wants to talk,
Yeah.
please.
Oh yes, Granny. Okay.
No, let's semi-stay in the topic. Since 2018, I have heard this several times. It might be a European issue, not sure, but I'm very curious and interested in hearing your view in this. Investors in general are very hesitant in investing to a woman-driven startup. When the CEO or the founder is woman or women, I think it's under 10% of all the investments done, especially in the emerging technologies, to a woman-driven. And in France, I'm aware of, they have even established like association of investors who are specifically looking and investigating in it with a special touch of women-driven startups, trying to cover or close the gap, or however you want to put it. So to me it's psychology again. But what's your view on, or take or opinion on this?
Well, you want the reality, or you want me to sugarcoat it?
No sugar here. You
It's
were
a-
brutal just before.
Well, I think the reality, like you know how the song goes. It's a man's world, but it's worth nothing without a woman or a girl. So,
Can I, Ahmed, let me attempt to answer.
but the wrong answer. But this is the reality, the truth that it needs to be changed.
And it's sad.
No. I will tell you something. I'll tell you something.
The ratio of women entrepreneurs.
I'll tell you something. To be honest with you, not just to make fun. It's not about it's a woman or a man. It is not always about the smartest man in the room or the smartest woman in the room. It's about the smartest person in the room, whether it's a man or a woman.
That's what I was going to add.
This is to make it more clear.
Yeah.
The reality that we hate to face, that yeah, the song that I just told you, yeah, well, maybe you like it, you don't like it, it is what it is. We're dealing with that, we're trying to change that. And a lot of women empowerment movements and stuff, but sometimes it goes to the extreme and to the extent that just because she's a woman, I have to favor her over somebody else. And then if something happens, we go into sexual harassment, we go into gender inequality, we go to like a, so we are in a very critical situation and sensitive one. So that's it.
But
If I can
before,
add-
yeah, I was mainly because all of that I know.
I'm
and-
just
and
being
I think
honest.
It's also important that we bring this up because it's amazing to hear you admit the facts, sort of.
I think they will have more politically correct answers than I do.
But the psychology
give my-
is the part that I'm actually interested. So, like you said, and I like how you say that you're very clear on what you look at and what you find or don't, and decision done.
Well, let me answer what you said about
Please.
women stuff. The same question was actually posed to me by a gentleman called Dennis Guada in an interview a few years back, Citizens ABC, and it's online on YouTube. So you'll see what I say is similar to what I said back then.
Yeah.
He asked me the same question. I said, when it comes to tech, tech to me transcends color, creed, religion, race. Okay? This is how I look at technology, right? It's intellect interfacing with intellect. If it's a green-haired black lesbian who has the best idea, I will back her. If it's a donkey, I will back a donkey. I'm looking for that idea and intellect, whosever head it comes out of. It's not about sex, it's not about color, it's not about creed, it's not about religion, it's not about race. This is how I invest. Does that answer your question?
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
So I'll give the reality personal. So 15 years ago, first tech to me, I call it 996. 9 in the morning till 9 at night, you're working. That's it, 9 to 9, and the 6 is 6 days a week. So that's, founders will do this until they die. or the business grows and they get leverage. So that's a definition, and any founder here probably knows that you don't sleep. So 15 years ago, my own perception, and at that time it is what it is, was that women wouldn't be able to deliver that amount of stamina to work. And honestly, that was my perception. And when I came here and I'm investing in the region, also felt in markets like Saudi, if you're a woman, you're not going to go out at 8 o'clock to meet somebody to have a discussion, or sales discussion, whatever. It's reality or fake, it doesn't matter. You know, you need an escort to support you to go there. Things have changed in the last 3 years. It became easier, partly COVID, so you can do it online. Partly Saudi changed, or heavily Saudi changed. Thirdly, my own personal perception changed because I've seen it, I'm feeling it, I'm participating in it.
Yeah. Exactly. You have the data.
and so that changes my own world. But I think what you said, is there enough supply of women founders? So I go later stage. What's missing is at the early stage enough incubators, accelerators that support these women founders, so that there's 100 to look at, 1,000 to look from, so that when they're coming, by the time they're filtering to me, we've already got options. Right now the options are very few, and then here's the worst scenario, which is the crowding out scenario. Again, Saudi here, if you're a female intellectual person, you're hired to do a government job, you're hired to do a corporate job, and you've got first priority. In Saudi, that's where they go straight away. In Abu Dhabi, that's where they go straight away. To be a founder, when you have so many other options and you're put on a pedestal, it's very difficult. To do the 996 when you can get a gold medal straight away.
And the same with the top minds coming out of the UAE army that are being trained. They all go for government jobs.
Yeah.
So that's the shortage of Emirati talent you'll find in the ecosystem. They pick their smartest people.
Not just Emirati, I think.
No, it's across the region, but since we're in UAE, I specifically flagged that.
I will refrain from a lot of other answers because I think now I'm not suitable to be sitting here, not with anything that I might go saying, you know what I mean. But to go back to your question, just one small point about the fraud or how Sequoia or other big... sometimes the investors just follow because there is a big name on the cap table.
Yes.
Exactly.
And they know that these guys, have done their homework.
But Sequoia is a big name.
I mean, Sequoia got on the deal not as a lead investor because they found other big names as well. So they assumed that they done the due diligence.
Yeah.
And even if they didn't assume that, and even if they know that they didn't do it, and even if they know that the company doesn't worth it, most of the time they know that they will inflate it and play it and IPO it the same they did with a lot of other companies that didn't worth a penny and got, like Facebook, it didn't worth 1/100 and what it was valued off. So they just know how to play the game and exit from one fund to the other.
There's another philosophy. I got lucky.
Yeah.
So I met Sam here.
Yeah.
Dysmart Skamochi.
Before the
Bahamas.
Bahamas,
One reason, which turned it off. He was sitting in the middle. And look, to be honest with you, in a portfolio when you have 40, 50 companies, 10 out of 40 companies will be going through good or bad stuff, and you're going to have to spend time with them, and a lot of time, and you need to want to spend time with them.
Becomes
the Stacy guy.
You could have bought a deodorant.
There was nothing about him. There was
When was this actually?
like 2 weeks before the
It was 2022.
Okay.
No, literally 2 weeks before.
So I have a question for the room. What does VC stand for? Okay.
It's a venture.
So after 19 years and observing stuff in the world, that is one of 3 definitions that I have come to, and I want to share the other 2 as I see the world today. All right. Okay. 5% of the VCs in the world are indeed venture capitalists who really back, help, and build. and no offense meant to anybody in the planet, it doesn't matter, but this is how I think. The other 95% comprise vulture capitalists and vicarious capitalists.
Yeah.
You talk about people who are looking for opportunities because their interests are not aligned with the entrepreneurs. Okay? What is the definition of entrepreneur? You don't get a paycheck at the end of the month. Okay? If you live and breathe that world, you can talk to the entrepreneur in the same language. If you're sitting in the comfort of your office with a salary check at the end of the month, you don't speak the same language. I speak my mind unequivocally. Okay? Because this is the world that I come from. So there's a different mindset. Okay? The vicarious capitalists are the ones like who follow big names. Oh, Microsoft is there, we'll jump on board. You know, they don't do their due diligence, they don't check anything. So this is how I see the world of VC. You know, changing shape. It's that's how I see the world. You know, and unfortunately, their interests will never ever be aligned. Take an average VC anywhere in the world and take an entrepreneur. Entrepreneur succeeds. Of course, the VC succeeds. There's a 20% carry. So there's alignment, right? Entrepreneur crashes, VC succeeds. Why? There's a 2% management fee. I don't give a shit if I didn't make money. Oh, I'm sorry, it didn't work out. But I still collect a 2%. How are your interests aligned? Prove it to me that your interests are aligned. I don't see that. But again, it's just through my lens.
Is there one more thing? Because the VCs in Europe, they don't invest their own money. They are venture
Ah!
So that's another thing.
You're a man
right?
after my heart. So yes, that's the other thing. So you've got somebody sitting in a room, a junior analyst sitting, right, acting like God, on money that's not theirs, getting a check at the end of the month, and belittling the guy who's sweating in the trenches trying to make a change and living in the world. I bow and worship entrepreneurs 24/7, 365, because that's the world I come from. So my language is very, very different.
You're rare.
Yeah, he is.
You're rare. And thank you. I mean, so good to
Yeah.
hear. Because obviously there's a lot.
And thank you all guys for being here today and for listening to us. I really appreciate that you're still on your seats. Nobody ran or jumped out of the window, because I know that a lot of
We were very close at some point.
I know you, bro. I know you. Look at him, he's packing. And
Ready to go.
But a big round of applause to Anna.
Yeah.